Okay, developing owners, not just positions. This is super, super important when you're developing a production team or any team for that matter, because production is very complicated and there's a lot of things to do. And this technique and method, I promise, will help you truly develop the people that you need and the people that they need to become. So, have you ever heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none? That often describes what happens on production teams. When someone's constantly bouncing between roles, they rarely get a chance to go deep in any of one of those areas. They don't develop the expertise needed to truly thrive, and often they burn out or lose motivation because of the overwhelming variety of tasks. So, what you don't really need is a floater or someone's just, hey, join my team. I really need help on this area. Can you just go grab those cables? Can you go move this rack? Can you go do this? And it's very easy to get into that realm because there's so much happening, but you need to develop owners. Okay? So, owners need assignments. Let's use ProPresenter, for example, or whatever graphic systems your church is using. So, ProPresenter, as you guys know, is how graphics go to screens, LED walls, confidence monitors, sometimes lower thirds, live stream stuff, a bunch of things, right? There's so many different parts of that. There's system startup and breakdown, loading and organizing media, setting looks, actions, automation, testing functionality, screen configuration layouts, live operation during services. That's a lot of things to do. But when you find someone who's a good fit and you ask them to own that area, everything changes. That's something that you can't just ask someone, hey, just watch me for a minute and figure this out. One of the reasons you can't do that is because they have to understand why it's important for them to do that. And I'm going to explain that in just a minute. But how to develop an owner. So first you got to invite someone into the role and you got to give them a clear time frame. So let's say you identify someone who's right for that role. And for ProPresenter, it really just needs to be someone who's pretty good with computers. Maybe they have an office job, maybe they like computers or they play a lot of video games. I mean, those type of people tend to work well in these roles. But then when you ask them, you need to give them clear expectations. And this is where most people often fail. They say, "Hey, help me out with ProPresenter. I'd love for you to lead it." And like, here's a video on it. It feels like not important and it feels like it might be a never-ending task. So you want to give them a clear time frame. So I like to say something like this. Hey, so as we're launching this church and as we're really going deeper into being excellent, I really need someone to own ProPresenter. And I would love for you to take on this assignment for about 4 to 6 months. And as you develop it and grow in it, maybe we can have you train some people and then we can recap at the end of that period. And if they say yes to that, go right into your calendar, make a date, say in 4 or 6 months, to have a reevaluation, and then invite them to that event. Trust me, you'll thank yourself later on. And then you start to equip them. You give them all the training materials you can, you give them all the documentation you can, and then lastly, and most importantly, you empower them. Now, this is the most important part of asking anyone to do any role. If someone doesn't effectively know why they're doing it, what they're doing, and what the impact of what they're doing does, they're not going to be passionate and they're not going to want to dedicate their time to it. So for ProPresenter, here's what I would say. When like this role is so important because it is directly connected to what people see and feel on a Sunday service. So if a guest comes in their first time coming to church and the lyrics aren't following what the worship leader is saying, the pastor's scriptures are off, and then he gets distracted because they're not off, the worship leader gets distracted because the lyrics are bouncing around, something doesn't get loaded and a video gets messed up or it doesn't get tested, that all leads to someone not connecting with what God is trying to say to them that Sunday, getting distracted and going on their phones and not connecting with the sermon and not connecting with each other. So this role directly relates to people getting deeper in connection and growing in their relationship with the Lord. When you say that that's why you need to serve on ProPresenter, it's a completely different ballgame. So that is the most important part of this, communicating their value. All right. So, lastly, it's multiplying the process. So, once one position has an owner, repeat that process. Identify someone for the next role, give them a clear timeline, train them well, release them to lead, right? Eventually, your goal should be that each key position has an owner, and then those owners are the people that you directly work with the most, and then they are developing other people. And then by the time they get to the end of that 4 to 6 month timeline, they can either stay on longer if they love it, or they can release it to someone they've trained or raised up. What this allows, though, is for actual excellence to happen in every role. Because, like front of house, running sound, switching, running a camera, those are all things that take a lot of time to develop good skill for. And if you get someone who is passionate about it and wants to learn, they can go deep in that role and then train other people in that role. And then all you do is manage each one of those owners, and those owners will release and manage the rest of the people for you. So hopefully this was helpful. And remember, they have to know why it's so important and why their role matters and why they matter.